Hello, friends. Host Eric here with another exciting table and top 5 list. This top 5 is uncalled out fallacies. Now, I am, in addition to my duties here at Talking with Sand People, which are expansive and uh, obviously consume a lot of my time, I do have a job of a debate coach. I do consider myself a professional rhetorician of sorts. And I've had a lot of arguments with a lot of people. Anyhow, these are the top 5 uncalled out fallacies. People get away with this shit all the time. Shifting ground. You embarrassed me, Betty, says Steve severely. You shouldn't have told everyone at the party about my disastrous presentation at work. Now, everyone thinks I'm incompetent. Betty replies, It's not my fault that you messed up at work. Betty replies, perhaps instead, Well, you embarrassed me at the movies the other night. Or Betty replies, for example, Well, that's because you are incompetent. None of those things are responsive to Steve's complaint, which is that she shouldn't have told everybody. Not that it didn't happen, or, or that Steve doesn't say, Betty, it's your fault that I messed up at work. Steve doesn't say, Betty, I didn't embarrass you at the movies the other night. Steve doesn't say, Betty, you embarrassed me, unlike I, who have never embarrassed you. And Steve doesn't say, I'm not incompetent. He's concerned about how everybody thinks of him as being incompetent. So, what Betty does is shift ground onto a related subject matter that is actually not responsive and not relevant to anything that's being discussed there. So, Betty needs to be called out by Steve. The next line should be Steve saying, Betty, you're shifting ground again. Okay. Number 4, begging the question. If you're familiar with begging the question as a fallacy, you may know of it as being something like when people go, oh, he's an alcoholic, he can never drink alcohol. Well, my brother's an alcoholic, and he's never drinking alcohol again, and he drinks it normally now. Well, he must not have been a real alcoholic then. That's begging the question in its most sort of textbook incarnation. But really, begging the question is, well, I'll read it. To beg the question is to make arguments predicated on statuses not yet resolved. A fallacy of many questions is one way to beg the question. It's like saying, have you stopped beating your wife yet? Well, hold on. If I say yes, then I used to beat my wife, but I stopped. If I say no, then I'm continuing to beat my wife. Either way, I have to agree that, yes, I beat my wife, which is, in fact, a status not yet resolved. That's a question. That's why it's begging the question. A fallacy of many questions is one way to beg the question, like the one I just gave you. Or the following false dichotomy is another. Should we take criminal justice or a public health approach to drug abuse? Well, the answer is, who's this we? Why should we be taking an approach to some other individual's problem? And why don't we take is there other options? Can we take a business interest in this drug thing and sell them for profit? If there's a we, am I involved in this we? Is it me and John and Bob? What do you mean, we? Yeah, we shouldn't do anything. Okay, fallacy number 3. Impacting inherency. This might also be called assuming solvency. Often, especially in the political sphere, people will advocate in favor of an action by describing the scope, severity, or urgency of the problem. Of course, it is necessary that a problem be inherent in the status quo before an advocacy can access its ground and argue in favor of a proposed solution to the problem. In other words, you got to have a problem if you're going to be advocating a solution. True. But once that inherency is established, in fact, the problem exists, it's not going away on its own, etc., it becomes irrelevant in our consideration. Do something is not better than do nothing. Indeed, do nothing is almost always better than do the wrong thing. So that's why impacting inherency is a fallacious thing to do and a ridiculous notion. That's why I phrase it like that. You can't impact a prima facie burden. Okay. Number 2, fallacy of fallacies. Oops, I'm revealing number 1, the big reveal. Number 2, fallacy of fallacies. Many people call out at least some fallacies when they encounter them. However, these people often don't know the implications of doing so. For example, Tim might argue that all men breathe and that Tommy breathes and that Tommy is therefore a man. Stan might point out that Tim has affirmed the consequence. However, note that Stan has not actually negated anything by pointing that out. While fallacious reasoning fails to meet the substantiation standard, it does not falsify, and conclusions justified fallaciously may nonetheless withstand scrutiny on merits not presented by the advocate. Just because somebody's a bad advocate for something doesn't mean the thing they're advocating is bad. Appeal to relativism. Number 1. The number 1 fallacy that I encounter all over the world, and it is a fallacy, and I'll explain why in a second. This fallacy is all over the place, and it takes many forms. Examples: you can argue anything out forever, so it's all just a wash anyways. Or, different people see things very differently, and claims to purport to have some grand solution that applies to everyone are pure fantasy. We can't ever objectively determine things like right or wrong. People will always disagree. Every situation and person is unique. Universals don't apply. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. All you can ever really know is how little you know. Opinions are all equal. Facts are facts, but everyone interprets them differently. It's all a bunch of nonsense. When people are engaged in a discursive process, it is a process of making claims, substantiating them, and then dealing with the consequences of your substantiations and your claims. In other words, words have baggage. If I make statements, and then I say, and it's because of this, well, I've affirmed this as well. And now this can be turned, or this can be used to do something else. So the point about it is, people keep mistaking the happenstance outcome of the discursive event for the purpose of the discursive event. It does happenstance outcome that some conclusion or other will be affirmed or negated, or some conclusions will be established by a thorough discursive process or even a non-thorough one, as long as it's got the ability to have the argumentation change, at least a couple of them argued out. As long as they get argued out, an argumentation chain will be a dead end from one angle, and it will be either not a threat from another angle, or potentially a tool to use for the other angle. Arguments have weight and impact, and they do things. So this appeal to relativism is especially appalling to me, because all of these statements are, of course, predicated on the notion that, indeed, relativism is bullshit. That we can make claims that are definitely so, like claims that purport to have some grand solution that applies to everyone are pure fantasy. You mean claims like this one right here? The thing is, nobody gets to play without agreeing that words have meaning, and that they have static meaning, and that we can determine things meh or meh for sure based on what those meanings do and how they link and all the other kind of stuff that happens argumentationally. So if somebody's trying to appeal to relativism, what that really means is either they're losing the argument, they're trying to get out of it by mushing out, and they're going, well, words don't really mean anything, and blah, 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 blah. Fuck you is the proper response to that. Don't appeal to relativism on me, my time, buddy, because your appeal itself only has any possible meaning to the extent that that we reject the ability to mean things. And that's, if it's right, I should ignore it, and if it's wrong, I should ignore it. So, yeah. Anyway, those are the 5 number 5, whatever they are, fallacies. Uncalled out fallacies. Uncalled out meaning people don't call them out. That wasn't clear for some reason. Okay. I'm getting a little punch drunk here. My watch came off earlier. I don't even know what time it is. 10 till 3. Eric, why are you up in the middle of the night? Are you on drugs? I hope not. Okay, well, thanks for watching. Don't forget to eat plenty of cheese.